That Business of Apps podcast. We invite app industry professionals to cover various topics. We promise to do our best to keep it both insightful but brief. In this episode, we have Paul Sakhatskyi, Head of Product Marketing at Readdle. Paul, welcome to That Business of Apps podcast.
Hi Art, nice to meet you and thank you for having me.
Great, Paul. Thank you for coming. It's great to have you on. Okay, we're going to start with setting this stage first before addressing the questions. So I think for all of us, this experience is familiar. We download a new app we've been looking for to fulfill specific needs, and for some time the experience is great. Then your needs may evolve, and now you need a new version of the app to cover it. If your updated requirements for the app are more or less in line with what other people need, and the developer closely monitor these needs, soon you will get the updated version. Of course, the opposite is as likely. You may never get an update for the app. You can't wait anymore. You go download a similar app from the other company. So the question, how do app developers team can keep their users happy? On the other hand, how do you make sure that over time your app stays intuitive for its users? Well, today we have Paul to talk about how their team handles these hard questions for the app documents. But first, Paul, let's begin with talking about you. Tell us about yourself.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Paul, as everybody mentioned already, and my marketing journey started back in 1991 in Odessa, Ukraine, just weeks after I was born. My dad brought home Philip Kotler book Principles of Marketing from a conference. He hated that at that point of time, but he was a university professor and he instantaneously fell in love with the marketing. So basically, growing up in a household buzzing with marketing strategies, communications, ads, it was almost inevitable I would follow this path. Now I'm leading marketing strategy for Documents, the mobile application with over $100 million. So we work primarily on iOS, iPhone, and iPad. That's what I do. That's what I'm passionate about.
Wow, I've heard many stories on the podcast for people being introduced to marketing, but I don't think I can recall anybody was introduced that early.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
this is awesome. All right. Paul, tell us about your company and what you guys do.
So another cool story, I think. So Steve Jobs announced the first iPhone back in 2007, as we all know. So four friends from my native city, Odessa, I think they were students at that point of time. They thought, well, this is something really interesting, and what if we can, get a couple of devices and just see if we can do something for it. So somehow, I don't know how magically, they were able to get 2 iPhones from the US, and they noticed that there was the gadget, the device was amazing at that point of time, but they realized that you are not able to open a book or open a text file on it or read an article, for example. So what they did, they created, in a way, an extension for the Safari browser that allowed people to open different types of documents and read them. So somehow people started noticing this thing, I think just because early adopters are so curious about everything new on the platform. And Apple added this website as a reference on their main website. So in about 8 months, our CEO, our co-founder, Igor, received a call from Apple, and they said, look guys, we are doing a thing, it's called App Store, and we are inviting you to become among first 500 developers who will build something for the App Store, for this new platform. And that's basically was the beginning of our story. The first application that they did, they basically took this web service and wrapped it into the mobile application infrastructure. The name of this application was Readdle Docs. In 2008, we launched our first product, and that's how the story of our company started. Now we are almost 350 professionals working distributed across the world. We have had already about 40 products in our portfolio, but most of them we closed, we shut down, and now there are 5 major productivity applications that we are running. So yes, that's just a brief overview of what we are doing and how we started.
Yeah, indeed. It's another amazing story. I believe getting a phone call from Apple would be on the scale getting a phone call from a Nobel committee,
100%.
letting you know that you actually won the Nobel Award.
Yeah. It was also confusing because they hadn't had App Store or any stuff like that at that point of time. So just to understand the concept based on a phone call was quite challenging. But yeah.
I totally see what you mean. These days, we cannot perceive the world without the App Store. But, between 2007 and 2008, when the App Store did not exist, yeah, it was hard to grasp the concept and how huge it's going to be over time.
Yeah, we have countless stories about that, especially when new devices were introduced, but there was no physical devices to actually work with. And you still need to support this new platform for your application based on rumors, based on leaks, based on your imagination. So that was quite interesting process.
Yeah, definitely quite a challenge. Paul, for those who might not be familiar, can you give us a brief overview of your company's app Documents and its core functionalities?
Yeah, of course. So Documents is, as I mentioned earlier, so Documents is a successor of the original Readdle Docs app created back in 2008. So a few years later, we just rebranded it, created and named it Documents, and made it free, absolutely free for all users. So originally, the product solves the problem of this Apple's iconic, I would say, approach to app development. Basically, there is an app for that. So this is a huge, I think, trade-off, and a huge win for users because it gives you very clean and understandable user experience. But at the same time, if you need some specific task to get done, you need a dedicated application, standalone application for that purpose. So it ends up, for example, if you need to work with a PDF file, you need a PDF app. If you need something to work with pictures, you need some picture viewer. If you want to watch videos or edit them, you need a separate application for that. So basically what we did, we created one single place for all your files on the platform, and an ability not only open, view, and organize them, but also engage with this file, share with them, edit them, do whatever you need on your iPhone. So that's what Documents is about.
Got you. And a quick reminder for our listeners, we're talking about the moment when now native app files for document management on iOS did not exist at all. So you were basically left with doing what just Paul described to you. Every single task requires a separate app. It's an awesome slogan. It's an awesome concept to introduce people to the world of apps. But then, just like you were saying, you have a bunch of tasks to do on your phone, and you're going to be using a bunch of apps. This is completely different from your regular experience on a desktop, where you
Exactly.
have many apps that do many things at once within a single app. And yeah, this is quite natural transition of the same concept from desktop to mobile.
Yeah, exactly, Art. And just getting back real quick to your original introduction. So when every application is built by a given developer, so they all have different user experience, they all have different designs, they all have different support, they all have different cadence of updates. So all this puts a lot of pressure on the end user, and definitely does not give a lot of trust to most of the applications and providers. So that is why we wanted to combine everything under one roof, and just to make sure that we can provide the best possible user experience. So yeah.
Now, how does the Documents app stay ahead of evolving user needs and continues to deliver value to users?
So this is a very interesting question, because we can look at it from different perspectives. So I think there are two components, major components in this area. The first one, you should definitely reflect current needs of your users all the time, addressing their requests, addressing their issues, addressing new technologies that emerge all the time. But at the same time, you need to look forward, and just to create something that people and end users might not think about right now. So I'll give you a quick example. So with documents, everybody knew at least about these concepts of files. But if we look at it from the product perspective and from the younger generation's perspective, files are just containers for users' information and their content. So there is no value in the file per se. And basically what people actually need, they don't need to manage or organize their files. They need to organize their content to be able to learn, to study, to create content, whatever. And that's what we are thinking at the moment. So our next big step is to move from this kind of file management problem rather to information management or content management problem that I think is already here, but it will be evolving even more in the future. So yeah, that's just one perspective on how to do that. Always pay attention, keep an eye on the future, on the trends. We dig into different researches from universities. One of the research that we found out recently about was when a professor at the university asked students to prepare an assignment for a given subject, and the most difficult part of that assignment was to actually create a folder on some cloud service or Google Drive, whatever, and actually upload that file to this folder. So this caused a lot of headache for users and for students. They just don't understand this concept. The only thing they need is a search field and a keyword to find your piece of content. So yeah, that's just our approach to developing and keeping our application relevant and up to speed.
You're actually reading my mind, Paul, because I was going to bring the same story because I heard it on the podcast. Actually, I read from Benedict Evans, quite famous technologist, blogger, and he was providing as an example of what's happening in the world where on one side we're trying to move away from the file system because people care about their movies, photos, emails, messages. They don't care about folders, their structure, where a specific file is located. And so if you grew up in this world, you have no idea what is the file system.
Exactly.
That professor had actually to give them kind of a lecture what the file system is. before
Exactly.
actually being able to give them the material he was about to give them, because otherwise they wouldn't get it. So
100%.
it's
Yeah,
just
100%.
it's amazing. Like and obviously the concept of kind of a file system free, more applicable to leisure, entertainment, uh, anything not related to work. But when you have to go to work, you're going to be dragged back to the file system, to the structure of your documents you accumulate over time. So definitely there's got to be an app on the mobile device that kind of a bridge these two worlds.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's what we're trying to do with documents. I think this is you said it exactly right. To bridge this gap between the the bright future that we are chasing without files, difficult or complex folder systems and structures, to just one field that you can type in, get whatever you want in a seconds.
Exactly. Now here comes the kind of a opposite question. How do you introduce new features and documents while keeping the user experience familiar and intuitive for existing users?
Yeah, so another tricky question, especially for documents, when you do have already a lot of stuff happening inside the app. A lot of features are very intuitive to use, but for some users, they just are not aware of their existence, just because they've never had a chance to try them or even work with this particular file type. So for us, we are using multiple things here. So first of all, we don't do dramatic changes that touch every single piece of the product. So we break it down into kind of components, use cases. So for example, we might redesign or create a new hypothesis for example, an audio editing that we have inside the app, and we launch it to a small percentage, to a fraction of our users, to 1%, 2%, just to test if everything works at this scale, and things don't break. So when you have 10 million monthly active users, you need to be very precise and very careful with these actions. So then we move to the next part. So for example, a new PDF editor or a feature inside our PDF editor. So we also roll it out gradually, and just to make sure nothing breaks at this point. So the best way to do, we call this approach as a rolling thunder, when you basically exposing a new capability to more users with time, maintaining their feedback, listening to them, fixing things on the go, and just make sure you don't make drastic changes one at a time. So that's our approach, and that's how we kind of try to preserve the best possible user experience for the whole audience.
You just said something that I did not realize before, that actually when you have an app that is a file manager, you kind of have a big responsibility with what's happening with the millions and I would say billions of files people are storing in their
Exactly.
accounts. It's not like you're rolling out your next calculator. Yeah, when it comes to dealing with managing, processing, sharing content, and on that scale, it's a big responsibility. You have to be careful with every new feature you introduce.
Exactly. Yeah. People treat their files, and they value them, and yeah, you must be very careful just to not break things for them. So that's very important, indeed.
Absolutely. We A few years ago, we trusted cloud solutions to store our stuff. We're not piling it anymore as much as we used to on hard drives. So companies have to meet that trust, justify the trust that was given. Can you share an example of how data insights have influenced a key decision in the product marketing strategy for documents?
Yeah, of course. So there are many examples, but I would just try to stick to one of them. So when you look at the data and how people add files to documents, obviously we don't have access to the files, or we don't know what kind of content people store. But we do know how people add their files via interviews, via analytics. And one of the probably the most common way to do that is just to upload files to documents via other applications. For example, Files app, Cloud, Messengers, email client, whatever. So the way to kind of use this insight was, all right, so people are adding files, but some of them just stopped on adding them and never went back to the application. And our initial hypothesis, well, maybe they just needed to store it or just view it once and just forget about it. But then we thought, what if they just simply don't know what they can actually do with this file? So how can they engage with this content? And we decided to replace this boring extension when you have just notification that the file was added to your application with the set of suggestions, actual capabilities that were tailored to a given file format, offering people to spring into action right away. For example, if you're adding a PDF file, we will suggest you to sign it, to fill it out if it's a form, to start annotating, to edit it, to convert it into a different file format. So this thing improved the activation by dozen% for multiple capabilities. People started using the application more actively. We obviously saw an increase on the business KPIs as well in terms of activations. So the awareness of the features also increased, and ultimately people started getting more value from the product. So just one little insight on how, like, when you look at the user journey, the whole user journey, how it starts, what are the main triggers, can suggest to you really insightful and interesting hypotheses to your product marketing strategy. So that's just one of the examples that we used.
Okay, that was the final question for the first part of the show. Because you're a newcomer, it's your first time on the Business of Apps podcast. I have a few quick questions I ask every newcomer so we can know you a little bit better. All right. What smartphone do you have now? Have you been switching between these two giants, iOS and Android, or staying one side all the time?
Yeah, I use iPhone. I have actually a couple of them. So I have my personal, my work iPhone as well. So basically two gadgets. I've never tried Android, to be honest. So I'm just purely Apple ambassador and user.
Okay, let's quickly jump back in time. Do you remember your first mobile phone before the era of smartphones?
Yeah, I think it was Motorola. I'm not sure what model it was, but I remember a huge antenna on top, and it was very bulky, very inconvenient to use. But I was so happy about this phone. Sorry, it was just a miracle that I'm able not to dial somebody's number from home, but just to call somebody from, I don't know, up from the street, which was just magic to me when I was, I don't know, 6-7 years old maybe. So
Okay, I see. I wonder what our recollections in 20 years plus in the future will be about the current iPhones.
yeah,
What
exactly.
what we will be remembering about this time in the history.
100%.
Okay, back to present. Imagine you left your smartphone at home. You're out. What would be the most missing feature for you?
Well, two things. The first one, to me, my iPhone is my bridge between myself and other people, so a communicator, which is crucially important, especially at my role and as a person in general. So yeah, definitely messengers. And the second one, I would say podcasts. So I love listening to podcasts. Podcasts are just incredible way to educate yourself and to entertain yourself, and yeah, that's what I love, and I will be missing this immensely.
I see. Okay. And now that will be an interesting question, especially for you. So, what new technologies are you most excited about when you think about your iPhone, hardware, software wise, or both? Perhaps something not trendy or flashy, but some feature that will make that phone a better tool for you.
Yeah, this one is actually great. So I do have a few ideas, few concepts in mind, but I think what's changing now and what will actually change the form factor of iPhone, the interface of our phones in general, is AI, because basically the best way to use AI to harness its power is to provide as much context as possible to the models. And our phones are just incredible to collect any type of signals from the outside world. We have cameras, we have sensors, we have everything, microphones in our phones. However, the problem is they live in our pockets. So that's the problem. So they cannot actually utilize these capabilities to actually educate models. And I think this will be a huge driver to the changes in the interface of all types of devices. And that's why I think a trend of a new device type dedicated specifically to AI kind of assistant, whatever, emerged. Also, just because your phone cannot do that living in your pocket. So I think I think the form factor, the interface will be changing just to make sure these devices will be able to harness the power of AI technologies. And of course, as an iPhone user and Apple's ambassador, we are excited about the upcoming iOS 18 release this September, this fall actually, and new capabilities that Apple introduces, including Apple Intelligence and other great capabilities, technologies. So.
Okay, great. Before I let you go, very, very final question. How can people get in touch with you and get more information about what you do?
Yeah, so I think the best way will be just to find me on LinkedIn. If you have any questions, if you'd like to chat about technologies, mobile world, marketing, product management, just drop me a line there and let's stay tuned.
Terrific, Paul. Thank you so much for your time and coming on our show. Thank you.
Thank you, Art. Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Bye-bye. And that was
Bye-bye.
Paul Sakhatskyi, Head of Product Marketing at Readdle. To listen to more episodes, subscribe to our podcasts on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, YouTube podcasts. Just search for Business of Apps and you will find us easily. Remember, we release episodes on Mondays. So subscribe and you will be able to get new episodes of the show on your smartphone, tablet, or computer as soon as we release them. And please don't forget to leave us a review or comment on iTunes. It is highly appreciated. And all episodes will also be available on businessofapps.com. Thank you for listening. See you next week.